recording our session. Lovely voice. All right, so hello everyone. Welcome again to Breakout Room 1, Admissions Process and Financial Aid for Medical School. My name is Jamila and I will be the staff assistant for this room. I want to extend my thanks to you all for taking your time out on a Saturday to join us and learn more about the medical school process. We are so happy to have you here with us here today. Before we get started, some general notes. Each of our speakers are going to present briefly, and then we'll open up the conversation. When we open up the conversation, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat function or raise your hand to come off mute. If comfortable and you have the space to do so, please turn on your cameras. We would love to see your faces. Also, remember to stay on mute when you're not speaking so that everyone can hear and can engage. And for our panelists, I will use a clock emoji to indicate when there is 5 minutes left. So without further ado, I am going to introduce our incredible speakers, Dr. Margarita Loeza, who's the Assistant Dean of Student Affairs and Admissions for Charles Drew University. Dr. Loeza is a family physician born and raised in Southern California to Mexican immigrant parents. Before becoming the Assistant Dean of Student Affairs and Admissions for the CDU College of Medicine, Dr. Loeza was a mentor and clinical instructor to first-generation medical students, working as a clinical assistant professor of family medicine at the Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science and David Griffith School of Medicine at UCLA. Dr. Loeza worked with refugees and migrants with the Refugee Health Alliance and Doctors for Global Health. Our next speaker is Michael Richards, who works in admissions at the USC Keck School of Medicine. Michael Richards provides leadership in the areas of recruitment and outreach for the MD, MD-MBA, and MD-MPH programs. Prior to his current post in admissions, he worked in the Keck School's curriculum department on examination development for the MD program. His previous professional experience includes work in human resources, talent development, and organizational effectiveness. He is a passionate, lifelong learner who enjoys speaking with prospective applicants and educational organization representatives about the many opportunities the USC Keck School of Medicine offers. So thank you both for being here today. To start us off, Dr. Loeza, how do you start to apply to medical school? Can you describe what that process is like?
So applying to med school is something that you have to think about way ahead of time, almost like 18 months before you want to start medical school. You start the application, but maybe like 5 or 6 years before you decide, you can't even apply. You have to start with the pre-med requirements. So taking the science classes required, starting to prepare to study for the MCAT, doing activities such as research, volunteering, community service. So it's really like something that you kind of have to do 6 years ahead of time or 5 years ahead of time before you can really get started. And it's a series of steps. So you just have to kind of plan out, maybe work backwards and say, I want to start med school in, the summer of 2028, and then just start going backwards from there and making your plan when you're going to take certain classes and do certain activities. It's a long process, a lot of planning.
Thank you. And Mr. Richards, can you describe some of the components of the medical school application?
Yeah, the medical school application process is kind of divided into 2 parts. There's the main primary application that you submit through this organization called the Association of American Medical Colleges. And then there's the secondary applications that you complete with each individual medical school. And the application process opens up in May of each year, the primary application process. And that's where you would submit all of your academic background information, your personal statement, you can talk about your extracurricular activities. They coordinate your letters of recommendation, all of the basic primary information, your demographic information, and all of that. And within that application, you choose which schools you want to apply to. And then once they verify all of your information, you take the MCAT, and the MCAT score posts. then the schools to which you want to apply will invite you to complete secondary applications with each individual school. And each school has their own deadline for that. And basically the application process runs from May through April 30th of the next year. So it's a very long process. Schools are allowed to start accepting applicants in October 15th. Most schools are rolling admissions, so they start accepting in October all the way through the end of the application cycle. And then in August of the following year, that's when most schools start the first day of school, medical school. Then students matriculate into their program.
Thank you. And we all know that applying to school can be pretty costly. Are you able to discuss some of the various costs associated with applying to medical school? And this is for either or.
Sure, there's the MCAT fee, the medical college admissions requirement, or the medical college admissions test, excuse me. They have a standard fee of $335 to take that test. They do have a fee assistance program that reduces the costs or eliminates the costs. I'll put a link in the chat so that you can visit their website. There's the application fee itself. I don't have that information in front of me, but I think that's I'm not exactly sure what that cost is, but I'll put the link in the chat as soon as I get that. Then there's the secondary application fees. Most schools, if you received a waiver on the fee through the AAMC, most schools will waive their fee as well. But most schools, if you don't get a waiver, will have a fee, and that might range from $50 to $100, $150, depending on the school. Those are the main costs of preparing of applying, and then tuition costs varies from school to school, and that ranges pretty widely from school to school.
And Dr. Loeza, do you have any advice for students that are writing their personal statements?
So yeah, personal statements are really important to the application. Many people, when they're reviewing the application, they'll go to that part first to see who you are. And so I would say that try to keep it positive, try to keep it, a lot of people have bad feelings about the medical system. So if you have some bad feelings about it, or you feel angry, just write your angry statement first and then throw it away, and then write your positive statement. It's okay to be upset. A lot of people decide to become doctors because they had a terrible experience with the medical system, but try to find a way to turn that into a positive, because if that terrible experience makes you become a doctor and makes you a good doctor and help a lot of people, I think that it's a way you can really make a good personal statement. And then make sure you're the one writing it, not ChatGPT, and it's really who you are, because when we meet you and you don't sound like your personal statement, it's really interesting.
Good point. And in terms of financial aid, do you know of where students can go to look for additional financial aid resources or scholarships?
I know that when they apply, we ask them to fill out the FAFSA, and they will get some money from there. And then a lot of schools will have their own scholarships that, after all the students have been accepted, they offer you acceptance, and they send you the financial aid package, and they'll offer you a scholarship. And each scholarship has its own rules on who, they'll give us money, but they'll say you have to give it to someone with green hair and a yellow shirt. And so we find that person and we give it to them, right? So, but there are scholarships outside the school that once you get in, you can start applying for it, immediately. So you have to do a lot of applying for scholarships and advocating for yourself.
Great advice. And this is for both of you. What advice do you have for students that are trying to figure out where they want to go for medical school in terms of picking out the size of their campus or, maybe their specialty? How should students start that approach?
What I tell my mentees is like, if you got into one med school, that's the one you're going to. There's usually people get into one or two max. It's very rare to get into more. And it doesn't matter where you go, because guess where you're going to be? The lecture hall, the library, the clinic. Doesn't matter where that is. They all look the same, so you go where they let you in and where they offer you the best deal. I that's kind of my old school way. Sound like my mom and dad right now.
Solid advice. And Mr. Richards, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it's very competitive. There's more California applicants than there are spots, medical school spots. So, you want to apply, widely, apply to some out-of-state schools as well. You don't want to get locked into any one school. You'll have your favorite that that you would really love to get into, but you can't really get stuck, just, trying to get into one school. You want to apply to a variety of schools. You want to research schools, kind of understand the type of support they offer, academic support, wellness support, financial support, what type of resources they have available, where you have resources. You might have family in different areas, different geographic locations around the country that you could lean on, if you're in medical school in their area. You want to think about these types of things as you prepare your list of medical schools that you want to apply to. Yeah, you definitely want to choose schools that have abundance of resources for their students, and that you can look at their websites, and they pretty much let you know what they have to offer in that regard.
Amazing. And do you have any advice for students that receive an interview, are invited to interview at their prospective medical schools?
I would say for the people that are invited to interview, right now we're doing virtual interviews, so read the email carefully, because I know people don't do that. Show up on time. And I know it sounds super basic. Don't come to the interview late. Check your background. If there's like a bunch of trash and your bed's not made, just hide it under the bed. Check your background, show up on time, brush your hair, wear not clean clothes, and, practice with someone. And I tell you this, it sounds funny, but I've seen some students do these simple, basic mistakes and have good lighting, have good internet. If you're going to have an interview and your internet at your house is not that good, find somewhere. If you ask your boss, you do it at work, find somewhere to go. Like, really be proactive. And when you get an offer to interview, answer right away and politely, and just, practice your best self in the whole process.
Definitely. And Mr. Richards, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would add, don't want to prepare for interviews in such a way that you're not reciting rehearsed answers. Rehearsed answers are killers in the interview process. Because most schools, particularly Keck School of Medicine, we're just trying to get to know you at that point. They already know that they already feel you can get through the program academically. You're academically sound. They don't want to hear, your bullet points of accomplishments. They just want to get to know like what your motivations are, what your values and interests are, and how you've prepared for medical school and things like that. They want to really understand you as a person, and the interviewer, the student, we have student and faculty interviewers. They want you to ask questions of them and learn more about them and their experience with the school. So yeah, definitely no rehearsed answers though. In your preparation, it takes so long to prepare for medical school. During that process, you should have a really clear understanding of what your values are and what your personal sense of mission is. and your motivations for wanting to become a doctor, you shouldn't need to rehearse answers for things like that.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful advice. Kind of changing lanes. What advice do you have for students who might not have the strongest GPA, or the strongest MCAT score?
So I think that for me, when I look at the applications, your GPA is the most important to me. And it's not that you started off your freshman year with a 4.0, like that's not it. It's like a consistent uprise, taking hard classes, taking a lot of science classes, not trying to protect your GPA. And that if you didn't do well, then you did a post-bac program or a master's in biomedical science, or you took online classes like UCLA has for post-bac students. I want to see that even if you failed, you got up, you did it again, and that you grew, just to see that, because the transition from high school to college is very difficult, especially for first generation students. And then sometimes some students had to go to community college before they could transfer. So I want to see that grit, and I want to see that improvement. And the same with the MCAT. I want to see that you know how to take a standardized test, because unfortunately in the US, that's how we test doctors. That's all you do is take standardized tests, and I have my board exams coming soon, so I'm still taking standardized tests. So it's just something that you need to be able to do.
I would just add that reviewers expect people to have a dip in their performance when they enter their undergraduate years. So, having a low GPA is not necessarily a deal breaker, or a MCAT score that's kind of on the lower side, but they do want to see, that you've progressed, through that after that, and that you kind of rebound within that undergraduate 4 or 5 year period. Because really what they're not awarding blue ribbons to people with 4.0s or anything, but they want to see that that you have, that how to learn, and that you have developed a learning style that helped you get better, and that's very, very important. So really the GPA and the MCAT is just a baseline measure of your ability to get through the medical school curriculum, but really reviewers are looking to learn who you are as a human being. So don't get too stuck on the metrics side of it.
Absolutely. And when should prospective applicants start working on their applications? How far in advance?
I think the minute it opens May 1st. You start filling it out May 30th or whatever day you can submit. You want to go first, because the deadline is never the deadline. So when someone tells you the deadline is October something, that's not it. The deadline is the day it opens, so you have to, because we get, like, I think you mentioned, like thousands of applications. And so once we have 1,000, we're not going to be like, well, I'm going to wait for Margarita because she's going to apply in October, right? I'm not, because I'm still digging through the first 1,000. So, be first, apply first.
Definitely, and you're doing good now by like trying to find out about the process, so that you want to be, going, years ahead of time. You want to know what's required in the application, and you want to craft your preparation. You want to gear that, towards, the actual application process, as far as like, giving yourself experiences, developing, your community of interest, and your why for wanting to become a doctor. You want to start that now, and you want to be aware now of what's going to be required in the application process, so that, yeah, when it comes May of whatever year you apply, you already have a really good sense of, you have everything prepared basically already. You just need to assemble it.
And what advice do you have for students that are deciding between maybe taking a growth year versus applying right after undergrad? How do they decide to do that, or what's best for them?
Okay, so I don't understand the question. Like, if they decide to take the year, like,
Yeah,
what?
so instead of applying like their senior year
Oh,
for med school, deciding
Mhm.
to take a year off to either do an internship or just to work, or maybe like improve their GPA, just how do you go about making that decision?
That's more now more common than that's like 80% of the students or 90, right? And but they still call themselves non-traditional, which is a phrase I'm trying to wipe out. Like, I'm like, don't use that, like, you're just a applicant. You kind of have to make that decision with your mentors and your parents and whoever's helping you through the process by, you know, are you ready? Do you have the grades? Do you have the MCAT? Do you have all your activities ready? And decide if you are going to take the year off. And when you take a year off, it's really 2 years because the application process is 18 months, right? So then that means you think it's a year off, but it ends up being a little bit more than a year.
Yeah, I've noticed each year we get more and more people that have been out of school for 2 years or more. Our class size is 186, and typically year after year, we have at least 80, 85 people that have been out of school for 2 years or more. And many of those people didn't know they wanted to go into the health professions when they were in their undergraduate school, and didn't decide that until after they had gotten out. And they, would do like a post-baccalaureate program or some kind of pre-professional training, academic enrichment program to take science courses and prepare in that way. And then they'll apply to medical school. Some people will just, will just need a break from school, and just take some time off to kind of decompress. Some people need to work, save some money so that when they get into medical school, they'll have a little cash on hand, money saved up. Or what have you. Some people, there's many reasons why people take a gap year. And I think to me, when I talk to our students, those who have taken gap years seem very well prepared in the interview application process. They really know themselves a lot better, than most of the people coming straight out of their undergraduate school. Into the medical school. And I think it just makes them a better applicant. They know what they want, and they're really more prepared, I believe.
Definitely. And regarding the MCAT, do you have any tips for students navigating that process and trying to build a study plan?
Yeah, I would say for the MCAT, one thing I want to make sure people don't do, because I've heard a lot of people, well, I took it just to see where I was. Don't do that. That score follows you forever. There are practice exams online that you could take to see where you're at. And I would say reach out to current medical students and ask them what their plan was, how they did it, what their schedule looked like. And it's usually like an intense 10 and 12-week period of studying, reviewing questions, and mock exams. And the score is important. I mean, it's not the most important thing, but it will help you increase your chances of getting in. And it also does correlate a little bit with your success in other standardized tests. So it's just kind of also it's a practice time too for you to understand the amount of volume that you have to digest during med school and when you take a test. So it's really important to try to do your best and start med school with a strong basic science baseline. But I think the best place to do it is ask like recent and current med students, because they have the most recent knowledge and the most up-to-date on what's required for that test.
Yeah, I would definitely start early, in preparing and understanding what's on the test I put a link in the chat to the MCAT. Go there. They have a really complete content guide there on what's actually in the test. And even if you're years out from applying to medical school, you can kind of look at that and kind of when you take science courses, work with your professor or advisor in your undergraduate institution to help you identify what the things on that test and which classes you can take that are going to cover those things, so that you're kind of working towards that even before you're ready to apply to medical school. And so that by the time you're ready to actually take the test, it's not like something new and you just recently learned what's on it. You want to be gearing your preparation, your academic preparation, right now to take that test. It's not like to say you're going to be studying 8 hours a day for the MCAT, and you're going to apply 5 years from now. But you want to have a general sense of what subjects, what types of science topics are on the test, and you want to, make sure that you're getting that kind of including that in your education, so that when you take the test, you can be confident in your ability to get through it well.
Yeah. And we have a question in the chat. Are you aware of any useful internship opportunities, and have you ever done internships that you feel have helped you?
So I put a link in there for mementor.org, and we post a lot of summer programs for undergrads, post-bacs, pre-med students, and there's the Summer Urban Health Fellowship with Harbor UCLA. They take high school and undergraduate students and pair them up with mentors. So there's a lot of pipeline programs at USC, at UCLA, at CDU. You just have to look in the websites. I think mementor is easier because we just directly post them in there, so you don't have to look around a bunch of different websites. But what helped me was the one I did at CDU when I was in college, which no longer exists. But it's important to do some of those things because you get shadowing experience. There's and you get to really see if this is something you want to do. It's a way to test to make sure that you really want to be part of it.
Yeah, so make sure you all check out that resource. There's a lot of great opportunities. Mr. Richards, did you have something else you wanted to say?
I put a link to our Office of Diversity and Inclusion. They host some pipeline programs and summer research programs there. So take a look at their webpage. They have really good descriptions of the programs on their website.
And just another call if there are any other burning last minute questions you might have. Really great opportunity to ask, talking to two folks that work in admissions, read applications all the time. If not, I have another question. What are some things that you see on applications that you think make for really strong applications? Like strong letters of rec. Oh, we also have a follow-up to that question. Are there any turnoffs for personal statements? So what makes for a great application, and are there any turnoffs in personal statements?
I think for me, like an application, I like to see the application have a theme. And like if a person says, because we get a lot of these, I want to work with the underserved. And I'm like, okay, so that's in a personal statement. But then I look at the activities and none of them were with the underserved. And then they tell me they had this wonderful experience with Dr. X. And then there's not a letter of recommendation from Dr. X. I want to see that continuity, right? Like, let's say, and if you want to go into sports medicine and you want to be a plastic surgeon and work Beverly Hills, put that down because that's the real you. Great. But I want to see like your words are your personal statement, your actions are your activities, and the proof is your letters of recommendation, right? So if you said you spent hours and hours working with me at my clinic, then the letter of recommendation, I should be you should have asked me for one, right? So just that kind of like continuity, and then when you answer your secondary questions that they match. So don't try to change who you are to fit the mission of each school. Just really have a theme for your application and you'll find the right spot.
Totally agree. The best applications that I see are ones that have a great narrative about who they are, what their motivations are for wanting to become a physician, what their values and interests are, how they've prepared, and it's consistent with the way they talk about their experiences in the extracurricular section. You know, it's all tied together. Like, you know, you say you're interested in one thing, or you're doing this for one reason, and then you look in the experience section, and they, you know, you can see they've done a lot of things that are complementary to that they've given themselves, you know, opportunities to obtain the applicant core competencies by their choice of extracurriculars. That really bodes well for applicants. And I think applicants that don't do that, you know, their applications are not quite as strong. So definitely great, you know, creating a sound narrative.
Everyone else should be back in just a moment.